What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so shout out to Dreamers Pro. All right, he's the first one I saw talking about this, and this is some significant news. All right, so Stephen A. Smith, longtime ESPN personality, has appeared on various shows in his career on the network, will no longer appear on NBA Countdown. I'm reading from the New York Post. ESPN is making changes to Stephen A. Smith's on-air duties. The worldwide leader announced this week that the new look NBA Countdown team will debut Wednesday, and Smith was noticeably missing from the lineup, which includes third-year host Malika Andrews, alongside senior ESPN writer Brian Windhorst, 2023 NBA champion head coach Mike Malone, and former NBA champ Kendrick Perkins as analysts. Additionally, ESPN senior NBA insider Sham Charania will continue to make regular appearances on the show. ESPN said the new look crew will lead pregame and halftime coverage for select NBA on ESPN game nights throughout the season. Smith has not appeared on NBA Countdown in the preseason or regular season thus far. It comes as ESPN's added Inside the NBA with TNT losing its coverage of the league. The celebrated show starring Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith, and Ernie Johnson appeared on many of ESPN's big game broadcasts already and will be a significant part of its coverage throughout the playoffs and NBA Finals. Stephen A. Smith has not publicly addressed the news. The First Take host, who is an executive producer on the show, and is making $21 million on his new deal with ESPN. Smith has two shows on Sirius XM Radio, as well as the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube, which is part of his production company. All right, so these are my thoughts on this, right? Now, when I first heard this news, right, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if there's any connection between that decision to remove Stephen A. Smith and some of his recent political opinions. And the first thing I thought about was Malika Andrews. Now, I'm not quite sure if Malika Andrews is that powerful, but I will say this. They did think enough of her to re-sign her, re-up her, extend her contract for an amount that reportedly is substantially more than what they offered Molly Qerim. So, like I said, I don't know exactly what her pool is, but, you know, there is often with networks, you know, backroom bickering. And we all know how Molly Qerim comes across, okay? Not Molly Qerim, excuse me. Malika Andrews. We all know how Malika Andrews comes across. She comes across as a person who has, at times, an issue with men. And if you listen to Stephen A. Smith's rhetoric, this is just a theory I'm floating. And it could be totally wrong. If you listen to Stephen A. Smith's rhetoric over the last several weeks, hell, months, he's become increasingly anti-Black women, at least to some people, all right? He seems to go harder on Black women than anybody else. Jasmine Crockett, you know what I'm saying? Michelle Obama, who we just talked about again last night. You know, Carrie Champion, Jamel Hill, right? And the list goes on and on and on. But when he talks about others, the energy is different. At least that's my perspective from listening to him. So, when you look at how a lot of the personalities on ESPN, they don't talk politics, but you get the impression that a lot of them skew liberal, right? Liberal, progressive, feminist, especially the women. Stephen A. Smith, at least his rhetoric seems to be leaning conservative. Remember, this is the same network that Will Cain was a part of, and you just had this report that leaked out where people were telling Will Cain that, black people hate you. So that's what I'm getting at here. Now, I could be totally wrong on this situation. And it could be just simply that Stephen A. Smith is burnt out and, he is sort of dropping his show right now because he has so much on his plate. And that could be very well what it is. Okay? That could very well be what it is. I do agree with something that Dreamers Pro said. All right, shout out to Dreamers Pro. Please subscribe to his platform. The House vote is today as far as the Epstein files. Now, let me say this before I go forward. Some of you may notice that I'm not talking politics anymore on my channel. I've just made a conscious decision for the time being to stay away from that. I know a lot of you guys message me and want me to talk about this, that, or the other politically. But at this point right now, I'm just staying away from politics. Okay? I'll let you know when I start talking about it again. But right now, with the recent history I've had with this platform, I'm leaving politics alone. I love it. I still talk about it behind the scenes. I'm just leaving it alone right now. Okay? But anyway, if they do decide if there's a bipartisan effort to release the files, the Epstein files, yeah, if Stephen A. Smith kind of goes out there and says something that is ridiculous as far as, that whole issue, I do agree with him that ESPN could ultimately punish him. And people can tell me some of the ratings. Look, Jimmy the Greek Snyder was a very, very popular, this was before many of you guys' time, this was back in the 80s. Jimmy the Greek Snyder was a very popular fixture on CBS Sports. But he was removed, I think it was around 1988, because he made some racially insensitive remarks in regards to African Americans, if I remember correctly. And they fired him on the spot. And not only did they fire him, he was pretty much blackballed from all major networks. They wanted nothing to do with him. And people don't play with certain things, man. Even a guy like Howard Cosell, right, who had been a civil rights champion for Muhammad Ali, right? One of the few people, one of the first persons and one of the only persons to call him Muhammad Ali from the get-go, always rooted for Ali. You guys might know that something happened in the early 80s when he was on Monday Night Football where he referred to a player as a little something, a little you-know-what. Well, you look it up, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, to be fair to Howard Cosell, there are various instances where he referred to other running backs, black or white, who were slick, speedy as that same phrase. So I always give Howard Cosell the benefit of the doubt, but he almost was fired for that. And ultimately he left Monday Night Football. So don't think Stephen A. Smith is impenetrable. Don't think Stephen A. Smith can't be fired. Remember, they suspended this dude 10 years ago behind his comments with Ray Rice. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on this, man. Tell me what you guys think.